So before we get started, I've got something very important to ask. If you could hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell, that means so much to me. These things are extremely important to YouTube's algorithms. And actually, only about 7% of the people who watch Against the Tide Media's videos are subscribed. Now in the past 3 years we've been up, our channel has gotten about 500,000 views, which is incredible, but that's still pretty low in comparison to other YouTube channels who cover similar topics. And with truthful and meaningful projects like The Chosen, The Shift, and our own up-and-coming streaming series, Anti, we've got a lot to share about, and we could use your help in this journey. Thank you.
All work is work, all jobs are jobs. You get in there, you do what you're supposed to do. And then if you get lucky when you get something decent or memorable out of it, this is beyond that. This was a life changer. All of a sudden I have, connections with friends that I never even knew I had, friends from high school that I hadn't spoken to in a long time. We're reaching out and saying, oh, I saw you in this thing. The people will remind you when you're doing something special.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Against the Tide Media for another edition of Chatting with the Chosen. I'm your host, Kent Glazier, and today I have the good fortune of sitting down with actor Josh Zagoren. Josh played the part of Judas's mentor and business partner in the most recent episode of The Chosen. And of course, we hope to see more of him in future episodes. We'll get into all of that, but first, Josh, welcome, and thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's finally sunny in Chicago, so I'm taking this as a sign. So thank you for bringing that my way.
There we go. I like it. Sunny in Chicago. We could make maybe a sitcom off that or something.
Well, it's a very boring sitcom because 6 months out of the year it's not on, and then you get like
there you go. It's seasonal. Yeah. By the way, Josh Zagoren. Am I getting the last name right?
You are. Hey, good for you.
Okay.
I get Zagoren, I get Zagoren, I get Zagorski. People just add letters to my name to make it make sense. I don't mind either way. I'm known by many names. I'll sound like magicians from the 20s, so I'm not mad about
it. Yeah, I guess there's worse things.
It's true.
So like me, you grew up in the 90s. We didn't have apps to watch series on. It wasn't a thing. And I was thinking about The Chosen, and I have The Chosen app here in front of me. I just want to make sure I get this right. Over 371 million views on The Chosen app currently. So,
but it looks like we're past that.
Definitely like a really cool thing that you've gotten to be a part of. And I just think it's cool how they've used the innovations in technology to get the series out there in a new way. But it got me thinking about just that, evolution of technology. And so I wanted to ask you, I first got a smartphone like 3 years ago. I held out with my flip phone for as long as I could until it fell apart, actually. But before that, we had the landline. And then I even remember my grandparents had the rotary phone. And I was just wondering what you remember as far as phones growing up.
Oh, boy. Okay. So when I was tiny, my parents had a landline, but they had a phone cord extender. So you could go from room to room. And so it was like a longer cord, and it would just turn into this noodle nightmare, this like Christmas light disaster by the end of every phone call. So that was that. So we had to figure out we had to learn how to pace while we used a phone, because back then you couldn't just put your earbuds on and go and do things. You had to either have an extender for the cable, or you had to have a cordless phone, which ended up happening later. So you kids, seriously, when you're walking around on your phones, just know how much I envy that from like when I was your age. Because like we had cords that we would get tangled up in, and then suddenly we had to figure out how we were going to get out of that. And then we had bases, towers, where if we went into different rooms, that would just sound like you were on a CB radio. So yeah, I grew up with all the tech. So I know my phones, everyone.
Yeah. You know your way around the phone situation. Yep. I remember when I first saw someone texting, and I didn't have any idea what that was at the time. And so I was asking them, like, what are you doing on your phone? They started explaining it. And I was just like, well, like, why don't you just call them, you know?
And they're like, yeah, why don't I? You don't think I can figure that out? You're like, future man, you do your thing.
Yeah, no, that's right. But obviously he was way ahead of me. Like, now I can't imagine life without texting.
It's weird because I like I'm a big movie buff, and I like watching all kinds of movies and checking out like old sci-fi movies from the 30s. Always you knew it was sci-fi because they had video phones. And that was even in the 90s when we had science fiction movies like Back to the Future 2. You knew it was the future because everybody had a television they were talking to. And now we have that. We use it all the time. We're doing it right now.
Right.
Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. Everybody wants texting. I'm like, that is the one thing that the future movies got wrong. Is that no. We just prefer sending little hieroglyphics to each other. Like as we're walking. Like, here's a picture of a sneeze. There you go. And that's something I never would have expected. That we would turn everything into little like telegrams that we would be sending each other. Yeah,
for sure. And how about like your experience with the internet? Do you remember first getting internet? And most importantly, did you have the AOL like dial-up connection?
Oh, yeah. So we had, when I was a kid, so my dad is a physician. I shouldn't say was, he still is. But like growing up, he had to always be reachable. And so when it got to instant messaging and dial up, we were, one of the first kids on the block to like get into that kind of stuff because it was his business computer that he would use, which was the computer that we would all secretly put games on and wait for him to go to bed. But like when he would use AOL or it was Prodigy first we had, because then AOL started showing up later. That was the dial up. And so what we do,
that was the cutting edge.
The new thing.
Yeah.
None of us knew how it worked. We just knew that you had it all plugged in, and then you would type in, because we all had to, we had to learn how to use DOS. You kids today, you plug in your computer and you hit load. We had to tell the computer what to do through a system of commands that we had to know how to use. And then we would be like, load up AOL or Prodigy or whatever.
Right.
And then that would take another 30 minutes, which is something I noticed recently, actually, ever since everything shut down and now everybody has to learn how to stream, which I think is hilarious because it shows just how old you are when you try to get in there and there's a bunch of 10-year-olds playing Fortnite being like, how are you not doing this? I'm like, I don't know. What time is it where you are? You should be in bed. So, like, learning about this, and like when my internet doesn't work and I try to load something and it takes too long, how much anxiety you get from that, where you're like, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this machine? But then you remember, oh man, when I was 12, 20 minutes at best before you could even start working on the internet. You would just click on it and then do something else like lunch and then come back, and then you could use it. I think it's patience.
Yeah.
We've lost sight of some of that, but that's to be expected. Sure. When technology changes, but that's the big difference I think I've seen, is where your level of patience is. Like if it's only been 10 minutes, you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 10 minutes since I started uploading this to my drive. Something must be wrong.
Yeah.
But, back in the 90s, 10 minutes, like, buddy, it's going to be at least a day before you can play this game.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. It was like everything you did. It was like you had to like kind of commit to, okay, like this is what I'm doing. It's not like now I can just pick up my phone and just quickly check this or that or whatever. It's got to be part of the schedule. It's got to be part of the plan.
Load the game, it's going to be 9 discs. You're going to have to sit by and wait for it to tell you to load the next disc, or you got a whole other hour to wait.
Right.
I mean, we had it rough. Okay.
The thing is, though, is we didn't realize it at the time. I mean, I remember
that was high speed. That was high speed stuff.
Yeah.
We got the Super VGA, and we can talk about this all day, man. You want to talk about retro games? Talk about this, man. I think that the big shift that I noticed growing up into the internet, unlike a lot of kids that are just 5 or 6 years behind me, that grew up with the internet. Like I remember it coming into our lives and changing things. The big difference is what I look at as taking like too long, where patience comes from that experience and going like, well, yeah, this might take a second, but let me tell you about back in the day when you used to have to load stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, plug and play still blows my mind. The idea that we can like plug in a Bluetooth soundbar, and because my dad was such a tech nut back in the day, like he would go to Radio Shack and come back with like speakers this big and 17 different tools to plug it into a television to get surround sound. And then I got a sound bar and I plugged it in and I called my dad. I was like, it's been 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm done. I'm already watching. I win. We win. Yeah. But that's the big shift, I think, is the amount of time it takes to do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if you talk to kids today, you have to risk sounding like, well, when I was a kid.
I'm fine with that. I always wanted to sound like that.
Okay. You're ready to own that.
Day one, when I turned 40, was like, well, now I just feel like I can finally sit back and talk to people like, I don't really care what you think. I'm 40 now. Let me tell you about the day.
So 40 is when that shifted for you.
That's when it kicked in. Big time. Which is most of my friends are in their 50s and they're just like, quiet, Junior. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
And it's great. That's if I could impart any wisdom of someone who's a little farther down the age road to someone like in their 30s who are like, what's 40 like? I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just that every now and then your elbow hurts.
Right.
Yes. No reason. And then you go to the doctor and they're like, you're 40. I'm like, oh.
But you do consider yourself a 90s kid. Did I get that right?
Oh, yeah. I remember when phones had cords and when payphones roamed the land.
Good.
In those days, I had a beeper when I was like 7.
When you were 7?
Yeah.
So you've always been very important and highly sought out by people.
Yeah. No, it was more so my mom was like, hey, when I hit this beep, it means come home. And she's like, oh, I know how long it takes for you to get back here. So when that went off, you had to either call from a payphone, which back in the day, phones were everywhere, right. You had to put coins in them to use them. Yeah. Or you had to use phone cards. Do you remember phone cards? Remember those days?
I don't know that I ever used a phone card.
So that was big when I was in college. And so when I went to college in Boston, it was all calling cards because we still really didn't have cell phones like we do now. I mean, they existed, but long distance was a thing. Money was, right. You could just call anybody at any time. You would go to a gas station and you would put like $20 on them, like a prepaid card. And then that's what you would use. You would dial the number and then you would dial the number. And so then, there I am in the like lobby of the dormitory I was living at in downtown Boston with this like dialing numbers and then trying to have like a, conversation with my parents or my girlfriend at the time.
Right.
College.
Everything's happening. Yep.
It was daunting. So you're lucky. Sure. This is what I'm saying. Then there was the trick where you would call collect from the payphone if you didn't have the change. And at the beginning of the collect call, the person you call the operator would be like, state your name. And he would be like, Mom, can you pick me up in 5 minutes? And then hang up so that you didn't actually have to pay for the call. Because Mom would get this call that would be like, hello, you have a call from Mom, come pick me up in 5 minutes. Do you want to catch, do you want to accept the charges? Your mom would be like, no, I just got to go pick up my kid in 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Those were the
sneaky way to get the messages through. Yeah, I remember that. Well, yeah, I mean, definitely like not everything about technology has been sort of a positive development, but I'm glad that, concepts like The Chosen have been able to use it for something good.
That was probably the most wild thing I think about working on this was when Luke and I were like looking over, what we had signed on for, because, we weren't overly familiar with everything right when we were talking to Dallas. And then like getting to Utah when we were starting to film on day one, and we were just like looking over the app and watching old episodes and then seeing the reactions and going on YouTube and being like, wow, like this is such an instant reaction to something that's ongoing. And it was a little daunting at first, I think, for us to go, we just got here. We've just been invited here, and it's a very big party. And we had no idea it was going to be that big walking in the room. And I think because of comment sections, links, and interactions on the internet, we were able to catch that firsthand, because having worked on other shows, not just 10 years ago, we didn't have apps like that. And so we didn't have that instant like, oh, there's an audience, there's people watching. It was usually like, we'll do an episode and see what happens. And if it works, great. You kind of find out about it secondhand, but this has been real time.
Yeah.
That's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because obviously, like, as a fan, I've thought about, how cool it is to sort of have it be a more interactive experience, but I hadn't thought of that sort of like from your side of things. So,
well,
yeah.
I also, being like a movie fan, I'm right there with you. Like, I love the interactivity. I love that I can go on Discords and talk to some professionals and actually fanboy for a while, as opposed to like when I was a kid, we would write letters to the fan clubs and hope that we would get like that form letter back that was like, hey, we're really glad you're into the thing. Yeah. Here's a t-shirt. And we were like, whoa, they wrote me back.
Yeah, that's right.
I got this t-shirt.
I'm in.
I got this from Universal Studios.
There you go.
But now I can, like what got us to this point. Like, I have a personal Instagram, and I think it was Noah found me on Instagram, maybe that, or maybe Facebook. I can't remember which one, because they're linked, and sent a personal message like, hey, come do this for what we're working on. And I, that's how easy it is to meet people right now that you are, sharing that performer audience relationship with. That's just wild.
Yeah, for sure.
Way. All of that's good. I think that's neat.
You're digging it.
Yeah. To your point about negative aspects of like, technology, I think there's any technology, there's a negative side to what it does. But sure. The internet, it's that comment section, man. I am all for just getting rid of that in general, because howdy, can it get gross and ugly in there?
Absolutely.
But it's also, for every negative thing you see, you find a positive, light in there, loving response that just knocks it over like bowling pins. And you're like, oh, well, I don't really care about what these weirdos say.
Yeah. How is that for you when you're looking through comments? Are you able to let the negative ones kind of roll off your back? Or? Yeah,
you have to. I also think that, the reminder that this is just a bulletin board, that it's like the bathroom wall. Somebody wrote something gross on the wall at a Quick Trip, and you go, oh, ew. Anyway, still here. I don't care. It doesn't really affect me, but it can I get upset when it's vicious and like directed at specific people, especially people that aren't even in the room, aren't even part of the discussion, and they're tagged in it. Well, then I'm like, why are you dragging people into a fight that no one wants? That just feels crummy to me. And I don't know why it's a thing people do, but they do. And I've seen Dallas fight back a little bit here and there on Facebook, but I think we all take it stride, just to be like, okay, it costs nothing for you to say that. So thank you for exercising your free speech.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like I just appreciate you kind of talking through that, because I know like, you know, whether they're actors or not, like everybody deals with this at some level who's on social media, and, you know, especially younger generations, like it can be a lot to manage and cope
play
with.
Fortnite for a day and just
Right.
turn your public comments on and listen to what kids have to deal with. And I think you instantly feel a little bit better that it's not that, but I don't know. We got to do something because it's a little too old West out there, but what can you do? You know, you teach, you feel like this is how you deal with that kind of person. You know, just remember that they're not real, right? It's just a comment in the cyberspace, and you can turn it off and go outside and enjoy the day. Nothing's going to get you.
Right.
Oh man, it stings.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly.
You're like, I've spent all week learning this accent, or I've spent 2 months learning this scene. And then somebody will be like, your hair's dumb. And you're like, what? That's not my fault. I didn't do that. And it's instantaneous. So hard not to react.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I was just wondering how you kind of got into acting. Is this something that you've been doing for a long time? Was it a childhood dream, or is it something you just kind of realized at some point, hey, I think I'm pretty good at this?
So when I was a kid, growing up in Iowa, it was a sports, community. It was very football oriented because I went to school in, near Des Moines, and that's Hawkeye territory. And so, we had a lot of that. I knew Kurt Warner when I was a kid, and he's older than me, but he was like around, he was our babysitter once or twice. So like we were around football. Growing up with a football family too, because my father's an athlete, and his father was, and like most of my cousins were. I had asthma growing up. And this isn't an autobiography moment. Like, I'm not just like, listen, you call the number at the bottom of your screen. And if you know a kid with asthma today, click this link. And we're good. We're a healthy group, but couldn't do a lot of the things that kids could do, like that. It just wasn't comfortable. Like I exercise induced asthma, so I couldn't run, and I have bad allergies, so I was miserable. But what I could do was sing in choirs, and I got into that. So that's kind of how I got started. Was I wanted to be an opera singer, and worked for a while with people from the Met in New York that would come through because I went full on. Because coming from a varsity athlete family, you get that mindset of I want to max myself out. I want to do the best I can. I want to perform at the best of my potential. So I was like, well, let's go in on that and treat this, interest in singing as that. And back when I was doing it, it wasn't really like American Idol kind of stuff. We had to go deep into like classic singing, old performance, madrigals, way back in the day. The music was you would learn your own part, and then everybody would learn their own parts, and everybody would sort of sing together. And so we did a lot of old school classic training and things like that, because I wanted to be an opera singer, because I figured that's the most athletic in the performance world, in my opinion, next to dancer or I don't know, skateboarder. But like the idea of using your voice athletically was intriguing to me. So I got into that. I started working with people from the Met because they would come through, because I was a big vocal performance scene for people just out of high school. And then suddenly our high school started really getting into our vocal performance, and we started winning awards. And then the pep assemblies were all about us and not about the football team. So it was a nice artistic shift for a little while. And so I kind of found my way that way, learning advanced opera techniques, things like that. And then that led me to college, where I kind of stopped with that and just decided that wasn't where I wanted to go, and started writing, started performing, and then took me to Chicago. And I lived in LA for a little while and worked out of there, learned the business of acting out in Los Angeles. And then decided to stick with Chicago as a place to kind of create. And so been here ever since. It's a good city for people who want to create something and add something to the conversation to go to. Yeah. So yeah, it was singing first is where I got my start.
Okay.
This man has talent.
And you do like voice acting as well, right? So you still are like, I'm sure, employing those skills and everything.
Yeah. Well, my dad and I were talking about that in the summer. He was asking me, like, what did you learn? It was a heart to heart about where did you get the most knowledge? Was it in college? Mm-hmm. Was it in high school? And I was like, I was in high school when I was doing all this opera. That's where I learned how to do everything that I'm doing now. Came to Chicago, went to a party for a band that I knew. I was talking to a friend and someone heard me talking and was like, hey, you have an interesting voice. Have you ever done voiceover? And I said, no. And they're like, I'm an agent. Come hang out at the office and we'll see what happens. And I booked a few jobs and they've been my agent ever since. That's like 10 years now, 20 years. No, 10 years, 20 years. Calm down.
100 years, 1,000 years?
10 years.
Yeah.
But that's how that got started. And it really kind of hit both the, areas, the Venn diagram that was what I was looking for, where it was vocal performance, but it's also kind of rapid fire. And it's commercial, so it's a job. It's not necessarily something where I have to sit down and really get into a headspace where I have to be super creative. I can just treat it like advertising, which is actually kind of nice sometimes.
Okay.
Because it's a lot less involved. You can just be like, oh, they want it to sound like this. These are the words. I can do that. Bing, bang, boom. Which frees you up for more interesting projects and things where you can kind of create your own. And so I've nothing but good things to say about that world. So far, so great.
In terms of commercials, anything that I would know, like next time I see it, it's like, oh, that's Josh Zagoren.
I do a lot of car commercials. I do a lot of tags on car commercials. So you'll hear like the end of a Ford commercial. You'll hear somebody say like, now through September, get blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of what I do. I've done a bunch. I did a whole campaign 5-6 years ago for Tostitos, where I was a party enhancer.
Our party technicians are certified Tostitos fajita scoops installers. These chips have red peppers you can actually see. No wonder they taste like fajitas.
If you look up, what was his name? Party something. Party Patrol? Rick something. Oh, I can't even remember his name. It was so long ago.
I'll find it.
You'll find it. It's not hard to find. I just can't remember the name of it. But yeah. There was a whole character that I got to do for a while for Tostitos. That was kind of fun. But for the most part, I'm like a professional husband number 2 in commercials. So if they ever need someone in the background, I'd be like, honey, where's the lawnmower? They always call me for that.
Okay.
Never saw that coming.
Nice. Love it.
Short answer, I've been in a bunch, but my voice has anyway, face for radio. But never, there's such a tight room in the world of like spokespeople. So like when you get yours, you can be like, I was that guy, and it's right there, and we can. Okay. If you've heard of it, great. So I was the Steelers guy for a while, but
nice.
Yeah, bunch of stuff.
Right on, man. Yeah, sounds like some fun stuff. And then in Chicago, you've also done the like Chicago Fire and let's see if I can remember them. Chicago. Yeah.
I've done 3 of the Chicago verse.
Okay.
First one was Chicago Fire. That was a while ago. And the way that works is you only have, you do a character, and then if your character is not coming back, you can't do an episode for a few years. Like there's a specific Dick Wolf wants to create where it's not like, hey, wasn't that guy this guy from that episode? It's like, no, they keep it really specific.
Gotcha.
And so Chicago Fire, I played a character who was in a very precarious position involving drugs and the police. And then that was 2 years later, I started doing a news anchor on there. So I'm Jim Myers on the PD. Never got to do the law, but that's okay. But that's what I've been doing since. In the Chicago first.
Right. And then how did you get connected to The Chosen?
So here's the story. And I don't know if I've made it clear. I love to talk. So, cut me off because it's a long one.
Take it away.
So back in 2013, I want to say, that's a rough guess. 2013, 2015. You Google it and correct me, please, in the comments.
Kindly.
Just, you don't have to be, polite. You can just come at me, but like, know that you're doing that. And what are you doing today? Dallas Jenkins, used to do a lot of stuff out in Illinois, and he was working for a church at the time doing something for their Easter service, and went through the casting directors out here and cast me as Simon Peter in a short film. And it was just the Easter story, like just that one moment, finding the shroud back behind the rock and that kind of stuff.
I'll just say it for our viewers. I believe that's called Who Do You Say That I Am? Was that done through Vertical Church? So if people Google search that, they can find it.
I think it's also on one of the Instagram fan pages right now. Somebody found it and posted it. Almost in its entirety. It's a 3-parter too. So the one that I know that's out right now is the end of it. There's also 2 more shorts that we did because he had it weekly before the Easter.
The series, yeah.
But that's how I met Jonathan, and that's how I met Dallas out in Elgin, Illinois, which is very funny when I think about, what the set and the scope of The Chosen looks like now, and then thinking back to like when we were like off the highway in Elgin, Illinois, being like, yes, this is where it all happened, guys.
Right.
Maybe they had a Sonic back in the day, but
yeah.
Working with what we had, which again is another testament to how great that series is, because the production value on what Dallas was able to accomplish with so little in that time in this old broadcasting station off the highway was awesome. Yeah. I still use it in reels and when I'm looking for work because it's beautiful. But yeah, I met Dallas through the casting agency, brought me in to spend a couple of days out there with a bunch of guys doing these scenes in this little soundstage, and that's how I met Jonathan. And we
Jonathan was playing.
Know each other after that. We're just Jesus at the time, yeah.
Yeah, and you were Simon Peter.
I don't think that was the first time Jonathan played Jesus with Dallas.
Okay,
I think there was one more before that. I don't know if that's true, but I do know it was one of the first times. And we just kind of all got to know each other and skip forward a couple of years. But we talk every now and then, pop up on Facebook and, wish each other happy holidays and birthdays and things. Flash forward a couple of years, Dallas starts doing this show, The Chosen. He reaches out for, I forget, he had me read for somebody else, and I don't remember who, in season 1, and wasn't right, but, was adamant about getting me involved in some form just because we really enjoyed working with each other and think it'd be fun. And 2020 hits, and then, who knows what the future of the, world is. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of all that, I get a call from my agent saying, this guy, Dallas Jenkins, remember him from back in the day? I was like, yeah, of course I know him. He's like, well, he's doing a second season of that show he's working on. And that's kind of how it all started. He just called me in and we did a Zoom reading and then barely even did much. He was just like, I just want you to come out here. And it's like, I just want you to come out here and hang out. I was like, then let's do this. But definitely had a part in mind for me. We did it, but we just kind of really wanted to work together. And then that's put me in the fancy gowns of Bob the Businessman. And so there I was out in Utah.
Context.
One of our just most active Chosen fans from day one is a woman named Sabrina Pierce. So Sabrina just had this kind of running gag going, started calling him Bob the Businessman.
Context again?
Yeah, about that.
Because I need to tell you this one right now. This was so good. Bob the Businessman. Like Bob the Builder, but better. Thank you, Megan, with the H. Thank you, Megan.
I've been
There you have it.
Met Luke for the first time out there and got to hang out with the gang, and that was great. That's really how it happened. Like literally just knew knew the crew, knew the people. We had just been friends, and they were like, "This might work for you. Come out here." And honestly, sort of saved my life during all this, because 2020 was rough. Nobody knew what was going on. We didn't know what was going to happen. We were all just kind of busking on the internet for coin here and there on the PayPal. And all of a sudden Dallas comes out of nowhere and is like, "Hey man, come have an adventure with me." And I'm always going to say yes to that. So yeah. And that's
awesome.
That turned into a long trip, because there were, I don't know if you guys knew about all of the stuff they went through for season 2, but there was some issues. The nature was not cooperating. And so I was stuck out in Texas for a while. We were stuck out in Utah for a while. I came back to Texas. But I always looked forward to it. Always a treat. Worked on a lot of shows and a lot of different companies. And this was a joy. What a loving group, just a good group of people. Felt like you were in like a really nice hotel, and everybody worked there, and we're there to help. But then you got to work with them, which was really kind of cool.
Give him something to try to convince, like to get some attention that he needs to get.
Which he does, like, basically just by insulting me.
Constantly.
Yeah.
That's what God gave us, and now we have greater choices. We can live better lives. More devotion. Finish your drink.
I love that. That's your thing.
Yeah, there it is. Hey, you love devotion.
Felt like we were out of time, not in the current state of the world. So always be grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, just the culture that they've created, and I've heard that from like a lot of the cast and crew and different interviews and everything. It seems like there's like a real camaraderie there.
You get, when you work on any show, a group of people that you kind of form a bond with in some form, because you're around them all the time and you kind of have to, right? Because that's just, we're going to be working together for a while. So we got to find something fun that we can do to just keep ourselves, cool, because we're sort of stuck here. With this, it was like somebody opening up their door to like a family reunion, and then being like, "Hey, you're part of this, so come meet the family and get to know everybody." And it was as warm as Thanksgiving. So constantly felt comfortable with these cats. And yeah, that's rare, is I think my point on that is that's not a normal thing to find in a big group. It's always a surprise to find friends, but this was different. This was very kind and welcoming, and you didn't want to leave. Like, we never wanted to like, we still all talk. And I'm such a small part of that universe, but we're still all on a text chain. We always hit up birthdays and check in with each other. So it's not just a surprise that this show is as popular as it is, because that group is very special. So
do you anticipate being able to go back? Are you going to be in future episodes, or do you know? Can you say?
The buzz is that this is not the last we've seen of Bob.
Hadad.
I don't know what is in store for Bob. That is true. I'm not being cheeky. I'm not Andrew Garfield you right now. But I do know that I'm involved in some way, but I haven't heard how.
Okay.
Which, I mean, would make sense story-wise, right? Like, and here's the thing.
Sure.
I'm not a biblical character. I'm a device that they're using to introduce, Judas to the story, right? Spoiler alert.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we're okay at this point. Yeah.
We passed that point. Okay.
I can assure you,
the character that, just in storytelling wise, it wouldn't make sense to not at least say goodbye. I don't know. Maybe I get hit by a horse or a camel or something.
Camel, yeah.
No. Okay. Be on your own, bud. I mean, I'll take it. But yeah, we were joking about like, it's just going to be a scene where Judas is packing up his stuff, and then I pop my head in and I'm like, "Get out of here!" And then that's the end of it. It's like, "Hey, bye." But I'm sure, knowing these people, they have a really interesting way to bring me into the fold one more time.
I would think so, and I hope so.
Anything, let me know.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, I know that Luke, and Luke and I have been talking about what that could possibly be. So we have our fan film that no doubt you will see on TikTok once we get working again. But yeah, no, I know Bob will be in the mix again, but I don't know how.
Just to clarify, when you say Luke.
Oh, the guy who plays Judas, not Luke, the other guy. The guy,
Yeah.
The actor.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I just want to make that clear for everyone.
Yeah, the actor who plays Judas and we got to be really close during that whole thing, and so we keep each other up to date on what's going on. And we've decided to come up with a fan film. I don't know what it'll be, but you will when it's done.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll look forward to it. Let us know. We'll promo it. By the way, do you mind being called Bob the Businessman?
No.
That was a fan question that came up. Somebody wanted to know.
It's better than Carl the Con Man. I'll say that.
Our business has a reputation of doing things the right way.
There's been a few things thrown out there.
I was like, I don't know. Bob just feels more apt for this guy. No, not at all. I think it's adorable. I also think that it's nice to have a name. So
yeah,
it's better than just businessman, which is what I was calling him for a while.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Bob.
Well,
great. Whatever.
I think it was one of our ATTM moderators who kind of got that Bob the Businessman trend going on social media, Megan DiGiamo. So shout out to her.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. That's huge. I have a name now.
I have called you by name.
I really enjoyed your character. I'm not sure if that's the right way to say it because I know he's kind of the villain. But I just loved like what you portrayed with him and the energy that you brought to that role. What was it like for you specifically playing that role? And were there any challenges that came up with that?
I think the biggest challenge was how little we knew that we had to build for his backstory. Just getting on set and being like, you're this guy who, who's bringing this character that we're all, and it was kind of a dodge too, because they wanted to keep secret who Judas was going to be. So they were like, let's introduce these two guys. And we don't know who one of these guys, it's coming. Come on. Your story, where we're at, what we're missing. So it's going to be one of these two. And
did you know he was Judas the whole time?
He knew.
He knew.
I didn't know.
Okay, so you didn't know who you could have been Judas.
Could have been at the end.
And it was deliberately vague. And so I think the biggest challenge was having to sit like in the hotel room before takes, before, being on set and having to talk with Luke and be like, all right, well, who are these guys? Like, where did they come from? What were we just doing before we swindled Hashem out of his land? Like, what were we about before that? Were we hungry? Were we fine? Do we have a lot of money? So that was tough, was building the backstory because, and I mean, we all do that for all of our characters, but like, there was such a short amount of time that you were going to see us. And we had to come at you with a bunch of information that we had to show right off the bat. Otherwise, you would be lost and be like, well, who are these guys? So that was tough, was kind of sitting down and going, let's take a look at the history, like where we are in the world, what it could have been. And knowing full well that we weren't going to be able to talk about any of that on set was kind of a bummer because we had all this work set up. But that's what you need, I think, to go in for that kind of thing. Other than that, the cold was rough, but that was no one's fault.
Yeah. What were the temps like? How low did it get? Because I heard a little bit about that, but
now being from Chicago and being used to subarctic temperatures, it wasn't the worst that I've experienced, especially coming out of the Midwest in general. But like, there were some days in Utah and in Midlothian when we were shooting the feeding of it was the Sermon on the Mount. When we were shooting that, it was, it was in the 20s, maybe 10. It got so low that we were putting on gloves on gloves. And I was there when they were doing the Sermon on the Mount scene with the, thousands of extras. Cause I was like, well, I'm not going to miss out on that. So I jumped in one of the stage vans, the crew vans, and went out there and snuck around backstage because everybody's masked. So it's like, oh, nobody knows who I am. Oh, I work here. Don't worry.
Gotcha.
Hanging out. At one point was standing next to Dallas. I know he knows this because I told him about it the next day.
Mm-hmm.
The scene, the big scene, the Live Aid scene where the camera pans from behind and, he opens up the curtain and you see all of the extras out there.
Right.
It was done with a crane shot. And I was standing right next to Dallas while he was calling that shot, but he had no idea it was me.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to be there and get to see my brothers do this really cool thing. But it was cold. And this is coming from someone from Chicago. It was cold. Mm-hmm. That was a rough day, but we did it. We got it. It was beautiful. It was glorious to be a part of. But that was the toughest stuff, was just the weather was not agreeing with our costumes. Cause we're supposed to be out in the desert and sideways. No, we're like not designed for this.
Right. In Chicago, you can prepare for that. Bundle up.
We know what's coming. I was not ready for that. Especially in sandals, which was a blast. And they took care of us. And obviously, we know everybody was really great. But yeah, that was a tough day. But other than that, I don't think there was anything that was like difficult because everything's pretty clear. And Dallas is a very he simplifies things very well, which I really appreciate, which I think all actors appreciate. And so from point A to point B, he's like, here's where you need to go. Here's what you need to do. Here's what we need from you, go. And then he's like, okay, let's try pulling some levels in and out here a little bit. Let's really, let's work this moment a little harder. Because he's just trying to get his takes that he can use to build the thing.
I'm like you, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah. I'm like you. There is more to life than titles and titles.
And make sure that last sentence, "I'm like you," feels a little separate from what you've been saying. Like shift. It's a bit of a shift. So you're like possibilities and money and all this stuff is gonna be great. And then that thought of there is more to life than tales and titles. That can be a separate. You can lean in a little bit more and I'm like you.
We were talking about that earlier at the bar too. So that's a big thing for me to say to you.
A lot of actors find, I think, or at least I do, when working with directors, is that we don't have the big picture in our mind. Even if we do read the script, we don't know. And so it's nice to be brought into that wider vision in the moment, which Dallas is very good at doing.
How about the accents? Does that come pretty naturally for you, or?
I mean, as I was saying, like a lot of vocal performance, a lot of voice acting. So I like accents. I like doing accents. I get a little widgy when it comes to accents that I don't know if I'm appropriate for, but we had a lot of really wonderful conversations with our coach about how this works and what we can do. And once you get the rhythm, it's easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seemed very natural to me. You said, is there a coach on set specifically for that?
She wasn't on set, or at least I didn't encounter her on set. She may have been there. I don't know for sure, but we definitely worked a bunch on Zoom before I got out there because we had to build the accents because nobody really knows what people sounded like, thousands of years ago.
Sure.
So you kind of have to be like, okay, it's a little bit of this, probably a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of this. And also none of us would be speaking English anyway. So let's just see where this amorphous thing comes out to. And that's, they created a very specific pattern of speech, which I thought was very cool. I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff. So having that, like, oh, please make it complicated. Go for it. Let's do it. But again, very good at simplifying it. So once we got that moving, it just sort of turns on. So like as soon as the cameras were rolling, we were all talking to each other. It was just right back in it. So they did a good job of cushioning us for that.
Yeah. You've kind of spoken to this a little bit, but just want to ask about, how being a part of the series has impacted you and either personally or professionally. Yeah. Just how's it impacted your life being a part of the show?
Nothing but positive stuff. First of all, the biggest change, I think, or at least the most noticeable impact, has been the warmth, the fan, just kindness is a lot to take in, especially in a time that we're in right now, which is just not great and hasn't been great for a long time. And having like strangers that I've never, our paths never would have crossed, DM me and say, I really just, nothing, no demands, no questions, just, I liked your work. Thank you for doing that, is rare. And yeah, it's just every now and then I can count on some positivity coming out of my desktop from people because of the work that we did on this thing. And, we get blessings and just niceties. Mm-hmm. So that's been profound on my end, which is, it's just grateful, so grateful for that. And that's the biggest one, because all work is work, all jobs are jobs. You get in there, you do what you're supposed to do. And then if you get lucky when you get something decent or memorable out of it, this is beyond that. This was a life changer. All of a sudden I have, connections with friends that I never even knew I had, friends from high school that I hadn't spoken to in a long time. Were reaching out saying, "Oh, I saw you in this thing." And I was like, "Well, did you see me in the other stuff too?" Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about that. So the people will remind you when you're doing something special, because sometimes your head's just down in it, making sure you're getting it right, that you don't really think about that big picture. But man, I'm never not reminded that we're doing something special. And so that's big. I've also never been in a reaction video before. So that was kind of neat. Like going on YouTube and watching people be like, all right, we're reacting to Chosen season 2, episode 8. I'm like, I'm in that one. And then pop up on screen. You're like, okay, what are they going to say about me? They're like, well, I really enjoyed what he was doing here. But if you think about it this way, I'm like, cool. I'm getting critiqued.
Interesting.
I don't see that in real time. Usually that comes in the reviews afterwards. So that's been fun. And if you don't think that I don't go on YouTube and watch what some of y'all are saying, I do.
Yeah.
I write it down. But yeah, no, it's been great. That's fun. Luke and I joke a lot about going on Instagram and getting to be part of memes. Never been in a meme. Never been in a GIF before. That's been wild. GIF, whatever. Yeah. That's the perks. Those are the weird things that you get every now and then where you're like, oh, neat. This is my face. That's fun.
Right on.
But again, it's all been just delightful. In a dark time, this has been a lovely little light in that time.
Good, man. Yeah. I'm glad that you've got to experience that. And I think that's been the experience of a lot of people. And like you said, it's something that's special and people feel that and sense that. And I agree. It's beautiful to be a part of in such a time as this.
Right. Also, when you're playing somebody who's not necessarily on the right side of things in the story, to have people still come at you and be like, I love what you're doing. You're like, cool. Because I'm not that guy, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Because that can be, people can miscalculate sometimes. And I've seen that with friends of mine that have played some terrible people on shows.
Yeah.
And people sometimes, you get so into the thing, you forget. And that again, we've only been, we're barely involved right now, but we have quite an impact coming up in the series.
Right.
And I think that, like, having this initial reaction to just meeting us and like talking to us, be responsible, and people being like, I know you guys aren't crazy like that. I know you're cool. And I'm like, good. Because just ask, anyone who's been in a Marvel movie, what could happen?
Okay.
But in that like hot minute that we're in there, we get to stretch out and get to be a little devious, get to see where that takes us. And that's always a fun exercise, especially in the arts, to just be like, all right, well, let's take the filters off. Let's see what happens if we're like this as an experiment. So that's a joy to get to play around there sometimes too, which is fun.
It was interesting, just like kind of seeing some of the reaction to the, reveal of Judas's character.
Hey, Simon! This is the man who got us the mount and the pasture. Convinced the landowner it was worth his while.
Ah, good work. I'm Simon.
Judas.
Welcome, Judas. I'm sure you're gonna love this sermon.
Oh, I wouldn't miss it.
Some people were like, "Oh, I'm so conflicted now because I really like this guy and I know like what's coming."
Storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. That's all part of it.
It would be horrible if you meet Judas and he's just like, yes. Horrible thing to do. Because then it's like, well, that's not interesting. So, of course, you pick the nicest guy in the room. That made total sense to me. I also, and I can tell you this now because like we're beyond the spoiler walls. I did not know that that's what was happening. Because in the script, none of that's in there. The last moment where he says, "Oh yeah, I'm Judas," by the way, isn't in the script.
Okay. Okay.
So I had no idea where this was going, which tells you how much I know my New Testament. Because like hanging out with a lot of those guys, they're like, "You didn't catch that?" I'm like, "No, I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. I wasn't reading ahead. I don't know." And so like.
Gotcha.
When I realized what was going on, we were maybe in the hotel, and I was just like, I just figured out what we're doing, like who you are. He's like, really? I was like, yeah.
Interesting.
We need to step up our game here, man. And then as we were filming, and there I am sitting there talking to Luke, being like the actor, being like, "Hey man, we got to do this, this because of this." And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I knew that. You didn't know that?" I was like, "No, I didn't know that. I'm a businessman, your apprentice. I just assumed we were devices that were moving people towards the Sermon on the Mount. I didn't know." And so that was my big dumb blunder. That
gotcha.
I think working in our favor because none of us were playing the end of that. We were always just like in the moment. So
yeah.
I'm glad I didn't.
And that's kind of cool because that's like also how the audience was experiencing it,
Yeah.
So, because I remember the moment when I was like, "Oh, there's something going on here, more than just the backstory."
Let's take some time off to rest.
What I need is a life I could be proud of. Don't you want to do something that will really matter? That will be remembered throughout history?
I appreciate your ambition, I really do. And I see potential in you, I see it every day. Here's an advance. Let's take weeks off. Rest, go for walks, do something new.
So if I can ask a question, what was that like? Because that's something I'm curious about. Because to find out, to like just boom, here are two new people you've never met before. You've been watching the show for 2 seasons now. We're wrapping up this season. We start with this land deal. Like that had to be something for someone who's been up to this point going, when are you going to introduce our 12th gentleman?
Yeah, I mean, I think like that opening scene, I wasn't thinking about that. It wasn't until a little bit later, like for me personally, and maybe other people were more savvy about that. I'm not sure. But in several of the episodes, they do an opening scene that kind of like harkens back to Old Testament times. And so at first I kind of thought that's what was going on with the opening scene there. As it moves forward, it's like, oh no, this is like the real time in the story. I don't remember the exact moment that I knew. And I think it wasn't clear. And I think you may have mentioned this earlier, like which one of these guys is going to be that 12th disciple. And when I was just rewatching it, I was watching it with my dad, and he was like, "Oh, I thought that was going to be Judas," talking about your character. But then it's like, oh no, like this guy, it seems like he's found what he's like what he's really after in life, that sense of fulfillment, and you're so excited for him. And now it's like, I mean, if you know the story, like it's going to go wrong at some point. So yeah.
Again, spoiler alert, everybody, read the book first.
That's right.
Very cool.
That's funny though. Thanks for sharing that. You didn't have to say that, but
I just thought that lent itself a little bit to, what we were going through when that was happening. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm just in the dark as you are. The audience was when we first started shooting. Now we didn't shoot the mountain scene where we were doing the land of the first scene. We didn't shoot that first. The first scene we did.
Okay.
If you want to go back for a little fun, just to see me slowly like trying to understand who we were in this world. The first shot we did. Oh, I have some stories about that actually. Let's have some fun. This is for the fans. The first shot that we did for the show. It's fine. Let's see. This was the last day actually. That shot there. I love that shot. So first shot that we did when I got on set was the bar scene where he and I are talking about, this is when he says like, I want to do something with my life that means something. And I'm like, finish your drink, finish your drink, finish your drink.
Finish your drink.
First off, drank, I think we tallied, it was 30 glasses of cranberry juice during that scene because I did a dumb thing that is like acting 101, film acting 101. Don't actually drink the thing in front of you because then you have to do it every single take.
Every time. Okay. Got it.
And so at the time it was 4 a.m. I had just gotten off a plane. I was exhausted. I was dehydrated. I just needed to drink something. And then like in the middle of the scene, we're feeling the rhythm. And I did that and I was like, oh man, no. I did that. And so then every scene we had to shoot was just me chugging these glasses of cranberry juice.
I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been wine, right?
Yep, could have been wine.
or maybe it would have been better. I don't know.
Well, not for the audience, for me probably. But in the end, I felt very hydrated. So we did this scene. Everything that happened up until that point to get that shot, I didn't know what was happening within the larger context of the story. I just knew I hadn't watched a lot of season 1 yet. I'd only watched little bits and pieces of it. I didn't have any time to sit down and just be like, hey, what are we doing? And it's just because of the way the production was going. Like we had COVID going on, that, this was at the height of the uncertainty of how everything was working. So protocols were through the roof specific. And it was just such a fast turnaround to get me from Chicago to that room. That was the first time I saw Dallas in person since we were, just in Chicago before he moved, right? And so like walked on set, saw Dallas, we got to like goof off for a little bit, and then it was like, okay, you know what you're doing? And I was like, no. So we just kind of sat down, and Luke and I just started feeling out this scene and trying to figure out what we could glean from just the information that was in front of us. So that whole sequence there where we're kind of showing off who we are to the audience is Luke and I just going, okay, let's just come up with some stuff. And then in between all of those takes, making Mandalorian jokes because of the set and the fact that we had all these like candles and incense going that we were like, I feel kind of like, just us figuring each other out is that scene. So like rewatching it, knowing what behind the scenes was, it was a lot of fun to be like, oh, that's us trying to understand our place in the world right now, which is kind of neat. It added something to that moment, that and the cranberry juice. But here's a fun. Okay, this is something nobody knows, and I want to tell you.
Excellent.
I appreciate you bringing me on to talk about all this. So, and I'm going to be honest, because I don't mind this kind of stuff because I'm an actor. I've worked in so many bizarre conditions. This is not as bad as it can get. So, the scene where Luke and I this is for the fans. This is a goofy good Easter egg. Fun Easter egg.
Love it.
So Luke and I are talking. The actor, just having done our deed, and we're talking about the money, and I'm giving him his cut, and I'm like, hey man, here's an advance, all that kind of stuff. I didn't remember half of my lines for that scene.
Okay.
Because this was like full on off the plane. Here we go. Get into wardrobe. Let's go. It's 4 a.m. It's thousands of years ago. We're doing the Bible. Go nuts. And I'm like, So, and I had only a little while to like really get into it. So I had the script. Of course, Luke and I spent the day when we got there just running lines. I get down, I sit down, I don't remember anything. So, and we're all just like, how do I do this? So we all have set scripts that are very small that we keep just so we know what's going on and line changes and things like that. So during my whole situation, talking to Luke at that table, have my script right here on my leg, just like right there. So you'll see me talking like this, and then I'll look down to just emote and then come back at him like this. It's literally, I'm just like, what line?
No way.
Yeah, you're the guy. So see, and obviously they edited around it. We did like 1,000 takes after a while. It didn't matter. But there's a couple of moments that they kept from like the first couple of takes that you can see me just like talking, and then I look down and I kind of go like that. It's literally just like, okay. So this is the one. So that's a fun one.
That's not like a character idiosyncrasy. That's just like Josh getting the line.
I'm a character idiosyncrasy.
Yeah, which is
like,
cool.
We'll use it every now and then. He goes like this. Okay, that's fine. Literally looking down at my leg to find out where I was in the show.
That's awesome.
And
I love it.
Shame about it. It happens all the time. But it made me giggle to go back and watch. So the first scene you see us in was the last thing we shot in Utah before we took off. So by then we'd had some time. We'd gotten to know our characters a little better. And it just makes me giggle how well and how magical editing and direction and filmmaking are, where that scene with us at the table was literally day one. No one knew what was going on. And I'm like, oh, looks like we know what's going on. So yeah, good job. Good job, crew, for making me look like I knew what I was doing. But yeah, so that scene's over. The next shot we did was in the same space. I forget who all comes in negotiating for the land. And Luke and I are at the bar. And we turn around and we're like, let me help you negotiate this land. Right. And again, that was later on that day. So Dallas comes up to me at lunch and he's just like, so the next scene, it's direct to camera. You can't just like have your script on your leg. And I'm like, you saw that? Because I thought I was sneaky. Oh. I thought I had all in the wraps. Yeah, no, everybody knows that. I was like, great. I feel really great. That's great. And then, of course, by then I'd had many hours to run stuff, so I wasn't too nervous about it. But I felt like I had really gotten away with something. I pull off the perfect crime. Didn't at all.
That's funny.
But that was day one, and then after that, everything else kind of clicked. But I'm finding out everything as you, the audience, are finding out things. I think just based on how little you knew about what was coming and how well we kept the secret. So I don't even know what was going on. That's probably more on my end than on their end, but I'm going to give them the credit for that one. But yeah. Oh yeah, that was it. Day one was great. We met out in so that's set. So we start shooting early, and so it's dark. And I don't know if you've been to the mountains of Provo, but there's nothing happening. There's no lights, so I didn't know where I was, what was happening, and so I think that's a testament to these people, to the crew, to everybody that was working on it. That the minute I got out of my car and they gave me my parking pass, I felt like I was at a good, safe space with good people that had my back from jump. And so it became just like just a comfortable place to create.
How many days were you on set?
How many days? Well, okay, so I was supposed to be on set for a week and then another week at the Sermon on the Mount space in Texas. But I ended up being there for, oh boy, what was it? 5 weeks altogether.
Oh, wow.
Just weather, boy, howdy. Like, first week was fine. I don't remember it being too tumultuous, but then as soon as we got to Texas and the snowstorm started, like the once in a lifetime snowstorm started.
Yeah. What is that about?
What is that about? Then I was we were sort of just there, and nobody shot anything. They were too busy dealing with so many other scenes. They were just kept pushing us back. And so, I ended up just staying there for 2 or 3 weeks. It was 2 weeks in Texas, 2 weeks. So 5 months, 5 weeks altogether, almost a month. Just because of weather and because of that's the deal, man. Sometimes things just don't work the way you want them to. And when you're dealing with a crew that big and scenes that epic, it kind of puts things on hold. So in the end, that really worked out because Luke and I got to hang out a bunch and work on our stuff and I say that like we were studying, but I'm like, we're mostly watching Star Wars and making jokes. But we got to be friends.
Building that chemistry. It's important. Yeah.
Yeah, building the chemistry. That's what we're doing. We were building the chemistry. Let's go with that.
It's all about how you frame it.
Then, but I also got to, because I didn't think I was going to really get to hang out with anybody except for Luke, because I wasn't in any scenes with anybody. But because we were all staying in the same place, the apostles and the crew, the potato sack gang, we got to hang out with each other and made some lifelong friends, just hanging out and just having really introspective chats and talking. And it was also really great to hang out with Jonathan again, because I really hadn't seen him in person since we were working in Elgin. And we had a couple of days where we could the two of us got to just tool around Dallas and just catch up. Okay. It was awesome. And just being around these guys and being around this crew and these people was time didn't even seem like it was. I never felt like I was trapped in Texas or Utah. It was I could spend more time with my friends. So that was cool. Right. A lot of late nights, just hanging out in the lobby, just talking about life and where everybody's at, which you don't really get to do very often, because usually you're just kind of moving on to the next thing and trying to work on your stuff. This was I got to take full advantage of being a part of this crew, and that's a feather in my cap, sure. So it all worked out in the end, I think. So no complaints about the length of time. Would have had more. Missed them when we were gone. Hated leaving. Okay. Can't wait to come back. I wish there was more behind the scenes stuff for the people to see, because everything you see on screen is echoed in real life. Everybody is as they are. Cannot state enough how rare that is in the business to have that. So it's good that you're fans of this production, because it's a good thing to be a fan of.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for, being a part of it and helping to make it happen, because I think it has brought a lot of good and a lot of hope to a lot of people, and it's reaching globally now. So lots of translation going on. So
can't wait to hear what I sound like in several different languages.
Right. There you go.
Finish your drink.
Termina tu trago. 把酒喝完吧。
تعمل شو بيدك.
Давай выпьем. अपना ड्रिंक खत्म करो.
أكمل مشروبك.
Los, trink aus.
So thank you so much for also taking the time to come on and chat with me and just the Against the Tide media community. I know everyone's going to love, the little backstories and things that you've shared that, we just wouldn't know otherwise. So that's been great. And I want to make sure to ask just, what you're up to now and where people can find you on social media, if they want to get connected with you.
Facebook, Instagram, you can find me there. I don't do a lot of just personal online work. So, every now and then you'll find me in one of these, but I'm an Instagrammer. I'm on TikTok too. I barely use it. But follow me, because once we start working on season 3, depending on what I'm working on, we'll definitely be doing a lot more stuff. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you can find me there.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, just on a personal level. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And let's do this again. Let's talk more. We'll talk more about behind this. I'll make rumors. We'll do a lot of rumors. A whole episode about rumors.
Right on.
Throw me like a stone in the water, watch the mud rise up. Dress me like a lamb for the slaughter, pour me in your cup. Should've known we'd bring trouble, trouble gonna find you here. Trouble.
Groovy.
Hey, man.
Hey, man. How are you? Here. I'm going to stay upright today. So I have this little tripod that we use for it's called Tippy.
Okay.
Tippy likes to fall, so I want to make sure that Tippy's in a good space. And she is.
Nice.
Anyway.
Is she called Tippy because she falls?
It's well, it was her birth name.
Okay.
It's actually Scandinavian. It has nothing to do with the fact that she doesn't have legs that work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
It just works out. I mean,
it just worked out that way.
Your name becomes your identity. And there you go.
She's living into the world she created. People being like, "Oh, you should get a ring light." Then you get one, you're like, "Wow, I hate ring lights."
I literally just have a window, so as the clouds come and go, we'll get all kinds of fun play with that.
I do too, but it is facing the entire wrong way.
Okay.
So I have to set up lights for these kinds of things.
Okay.
It's always really funny because I'm like, "Hang on, wait, are we good? There's no one here. I'm talking to no one. I have a crew."
All right.
Hello. How are you?
Hey, man. Doing all right.
There it is. I'm looking at it. Give me a moment to read all this stuff because I read what people send me. Yeah. Yep. Cool. I feel the pain being like, everyone that can record.
Right. Exactly.
You just never know.
Yeah. We had one of the first interviews that Against the Tide did. The host just forgot to hit record altogether. I can't remember who the actor was. It was someone from The Chosen, but the whole thing was gone. They were very gracious and came back and did it again. But yeah,
that sounds like a thing that's happened before. It doesn't sound too out there.
All right.
Just FYI, my recording stopped, but that's okay. I guess I can try again. Maybe I can. Sorry, one sec. Oh, it's because of my disk space. All right.
Oh, okay.
Don't anybody mess up from here on out. All one take.
All right, here we go.
Where I last left off. Nobody's blah, blah, blah. Yep, nobody's texting me. So that means I'm still good.
Okay.
All right. So
you're not getting paged.
No, not getting paged. Not the 90s anymore, man. They'll just interrupt this conversation.
Am I a joke to you?
I would do this.
You've got some nice hair, and I'm a little envious here. You can see mine's going away rapidly. So
okay, we'll do this. We'll do this just because this is only because of casting.
There you go. Yeah, get the recognition.
Show off that, I do. This is the same. It's not a wig. This is my own. This is real.
This is Josh.
Let me go grab a glass of water just in case.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, there's too much to do today, Kent. There's too much to do.
I've got my coffee now. Does that count? Or
yeah. Oh, love that.
There's I mean, it requires water, right?
Yeah, it's hydration, right? Look around to no one who's in the room with me, right?
Yeah.
No.
I went and played volleyball the other day, and it's just I haven't done much physical activity since pre-COVID, and so I was kind of getting back into sports and stuff, and it's just I'm sore, and the recovery time is a lot longer.
I'm like, let's do some push-ups, and then 10 minutes into it, I'm like, why? But I'm getting back in the throes, of course, because it was winter, and winter in Chicago is hibernation for the most part. Now everything's starting to warm up. We actually have sun today, It scared us all. We'll do like a leg thing for the day, and then 2 days later, we're like, so I haven't walked in 2 days. How about you? It's like, no, I'm not getting off this couch.
Hadad!
What? Go home!
I'm waiting! The car's still on!
We'll be with you in a minute. Roll the windows down.
You could have been Judas.
Could have been at the end. Because I have a lot of money. I don't know where the money came from.
Get in the car!
I can't!
Okay, well, we'll talk about this later.
Okay, I
We'll talk about
understand.
this later.
I just want you to know I love you. So you can't hurt me.
It's finally sunny in Chicago, so I'm taking this as a sign.
Sunny in Chicago. We could make maybe a sitcom off that or something.